we got some maintenance items. Alright, first up we got belts. So this machine has 3 belts. These 2 go to the pony motor, and this one goes to the fan for the diesel radiator, the radiator coolant fan. And so, brand new. These are just new old stock. So, those will be awesome. We have brand new fuel filters, and it's really cool. These filters, it's a new old stock. They are the original type of cloth wound filters with 2 new, brand new Caterpillar gaskets and instructions for replacing them. Removing the old one, attaching the new one. And an illustration for those that can't figure out how simple it really is. So, a big thanks to Bill. Bill is one of the viewers of the channel. He sent me these filters, and he also sent me the 955 Operation and Maintenance Manual. And so, this is the only one that I couldn't find in PDF. I have all the others, at least I think I do. There's a couple weird ones that I haven't been able to find yet. But this goes through all the fluids, how to read everything, when to change what. It has a full diagram of the grease locations, all the lubricating locations, all the oils that need to be changed, how to maintain it, how to run it, how to start it. It goes into detail on how to load, even when you're driving, you're actually using the bucket, how to scoop, how to fill, the way in which there is actual parts of the machine that you should look at when you're trying to get a level bucket. These basically, they call them, what are they? Bucket indicator positions. So it's like this little piece here. I wondered what this was. And then a little spot. When we get it running, I will explain and show what that is and where it is and how it actually works when you're using the machine. But this manual has been awesome. I mean, I've read it a few times already, just learning about the machine, learning about maintaining it, what I need to do to get everything ready to rock and roll, everything ready to put back together and actually run well once we get to the point where we're going to use it. So, big thank you to Bill for the manual and for the filters. I really appreciate that, and I'll put them to good use. Next up, we got a brand new engine oil filter. So I actually bought a few of these. This is the only one I've gotten so far, but I plan on changing the oil a couple times. Pretty soon after I run it for a few hours, I'll change it again. But this is one of the ones. I got an actual cat filter. It turned out to be actually fairly affordable. Next up is hydraulic filters. So, these just happened to be an eBay auction where there were just 2 in each. The reason I bought 2 is I was looking at the Caterpillar ones, and on the pictures you can't really tell, but the Caterpillar one didn't look all that heavy duty. And so, and it's not the style that was in the machine. The style that was in the machine is similar to this Wix filter. It's a paper filter, but it has a metal cage around it. And so I didn't really know which one would be better. And so my thought was they were cheap enough. I bought a few different kinds. If you have a preference, if you know, like, which would you use? I mean, obviously Caterpillar does tons and tons of engineering into their filters and their machines. And so this is probably a very, very good filter. But, the way I kind of looked at it, I didn't know if there was pressure in the system and they had this metal cage to keep the paper filter from exploding or, getting, breaking apart and getting big chunks of paper in the hydraulic system. And so this is similar to what's on the actual cat part is almost identical to this. And so this is a cross-referenced newer part that will basically fit and do the same thing in the same location. So I'm probably going to start out with a cat one. We're going to end up changing the filter a couple times just to make sure that no sediment or anything gets in it. Now I've got 4 filters here. At the end of the day, I can change the filter fairly easily. So yeah, exciting. Got these filters and all this basically maintenance stuff. Now it's just a matter of doing the maintenance, changing the oils, getting the filters replaced, getting the belts in, and then we'll be, you know, that much closer to getting it ready to rock and roll so we can put this baby back to work. One of the bolts on this cover here was broken, so I'm going to take that out. Broke the torque bit right in the middle of it. I think there's enough I can maybe weld a nut over it. I think we got it. Nope. I think we got it, finally. Gotcha. So, one of the best analogies I like when it comes to failure and success and continuing to try is removing broken bolts from something old like this, because it's not easy. It can be very, very difficult. And as you can see, I had 7 welded nuts onto that broken bolt before the 8th time that I got it. And technically, it would have been 9 failed attempts, because initially I broke a torque bit in the bolt before I even got the welder out and decided to weld these nuts on it. So if I had given up maybe at, like, you know, 4 or 5, you know, I may not have gotten it out. I may just have been like, it'll be okay, it'll be good enough, whatever. Well, it won't. I want it out. I want to put a bolt in there, hold that cover on properly. And so I just encourage you to keep trying, even if you're failing over and over and over. Just keep trying. Do something different. Make another attempt. I kept adjusting the heat, adjusting the amperage, adjusting the speed of the wire until I finally got it. I also changed types of nuts. I used a different kind of nut. Tried to find a harder one. I think the initial ones I was using pretty poor quality. And so, you know, you don't want to just fail and keep doing the same thing. That's the definition of insanity. Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. And so you know, adjust your method, adjust your angle, and move on and keep going. And so, yeah, finally, on the 9th attempt, I got it. Every one of these bolt holes I've run a tap through just to clean them up. These big ones, the 2 big ones on the side, these 4 in the middle, And then these two adjuster all were just completely packed with dirt and grease, but there were no broken bolts or anything in them. The only broken bolt in the back here was this one here on the corner, which we just got off. So I'm gonna make new gaskets for these covers. Same with the brake access panel covers. I'm gonna make new gaskets for that so that we can keep water out. Because when I did take the top cover off, there was water kind of pooled underneath that cover. So, and it didn't have much for a gasket. Good buddy. Good boy.
Boom.
I'm a gasket making fool tonight. So this is the operation and maintenance instructions / manual for the Cat 955. And it goes through all the basics of the machine, maintenance and other things that it needs to run properly, including all the greaser locations and all the oil locations. Right now we're going to focus on the oil and other filters that need to be changed. Basic maintenance, essentially, that Old Red hasn't seen in decades. Here's the instructions for the flywheel clutch compartment, and we're going to do all of it. Pulling the plugs, cleaning the strainer at the bottom, and putting new oil in. Alright, so right here is the flywheel clutch drain plug, and then there's another drain plug here, and the plug in the middle is how you drain it, and then you take the whole thing out to drain the strainer, essentially. Well, the bolts are so messed up, not a single one of them can you get an actual socket on. I got this one loose, and this one loose just by pounding a smaller socket on. And I got this one loose by filing some flats onto two sides of it and then got vice grips on. So we're gonna try that on these two. I haven't gotten these two loose yet. I was able to get the plug loose. Let's try that. Awesome. Got that one. Awesome. Got that one too. All right. I think we got all 6. Oh. Let's see. That one's loose. That one's loose. That one's loose. Okay. Cool. So this is the screen, the fluid screen for the flywheel clutch. So as you can see, these bolts are pretty much all worn to nothing. So here's one of the ones I ground the flats on the sides to grab it with the vice grips. And there's another one like that. And then that one. But definitely not reusable. Get some new ones. But here's the screen that we're going to clean out. All kinds of gunked up. This gasket, no good anymore. We'll make a new one. Here's the bottom plate with the plug. And it's got a magnetic spot here for all the gunk, which this is all that really was on it. There wasn't a whole lot more, so that's a great sign that there's not a ton of magnetic particles built up in there. New gasket. I decided to make it bigger because essentially this was still too big to get the screen out without destroying the gasket. And my thought was more gasket material will seal better in the, you know, off chance that it does decide to leak. I did make this hole the size of this hole so that there's no potential for gasket material getting up into the screen. So rather than the size of the actual drain hole. But we're gonna coat it with grease and put it back in there. Now we got 6 new bolts, 6 new lock washers. Should be good to go. So a bunch of these plugs are a hex head, and I didn't have a tool for it. So I found a bolt with the right size head. I jammed 2 nuts on it, welded it on, kind of ground it down a little bit so it wasn't in the way. Now a 1 1/8 socket fits right down over it, and I can shove that into whatever one of these drain plugs. One here, one back there, one up for the engine oil. There's 2 for the final drives. There's 1 on either side of the steering clutch, and so it makes it easier to get them off. So we're gonna drain this one too. There we go. Here's another magnetic drain plug. Grabs all the metal shavings and miscellaneous metal junk in there to keep it from flowing through the system as best as possible. Nasty. Copper NICs. So this is the transmission fill, and this is the flywheel clutch fill location. So we got the dipstick for the transmission here, completely dry, and the dipstick for the flywheel clutch, completely dry. So we're gonna fill those up. Right at full. I made a mess. Right at full. Right there. Perfect. So right there on top of this is where the bleeder valve is for the hydraulic filter assembly. And here's where the hydraulic filter goes into the canister on the side of the machine. So this is the extra hydraulic filter assembly that I got with the machine, and it has a better intact bleed valve screw on the top of this cap. So my plan is to take this cap, assuming it fits perfectly onto the machine, and replace the entire cap, because the bleed valve on the machine is currently broken, and I've tried getting it off a couple times and I can't. Now, back when I had this machine back in the barn, the previous property, I had all the bolts out of this, but I could not get this off. And so I'm going to work a little bit harder trying to get it off. Worst case scenario, I'll take this bleeding screw out of this cap, and I'll work harder on getting the broken one out of the other cap. As you can see, it was just rusted kind of around the outside here. and that's why it wasn't wanting to come loose. Sits down there like that. The spring puts tension down on the filter, and then this is the bleed screw. Essentially, it's a screw with a groove in it, and when you back it out far enough, it lets air out. Now, this flange for this top lid is different than the one on the machine, so I may not be able to use this. Oh, wonderful. So check this out. Got a friend living in the bottom of this filter assembly, or there was at one time. I didn't think there was much in there. Alright, I think I've decided I'm going to replace this entire hydraulic filter assembly with the other one. It's in better shape, it's nicer, and it's not too bad of a job. So this is the difference between the hydraulic filter assemblies. This particular one looks much nicer. It's just like the welds are better, it's thicker metal. I think it's technically from a D4. The only thing it doesn't have is it doesn't have this bracket here. And so I think the plan, it's taller, it fits on the machine, the bolt holes are the same, the hydraulic hoses fit in the same spot. I'm going to cut this bracket off of this filter assembly and we're going to weld it to this once we have it all installed on the machine so I can get it to the right spot. Now, the way that this one seals is it's got this like little rim that is replaceable, and then this bolt here is the bleed valve. And if you see that groove in the valve, basically it's a screw with basically a notch down it. As you unscrew that at a certain point, that groove is exposed, releasing the air that's built up in the hydraulic system. And so the whole reason that I'm even messing with this hydraulic filter assembly is because this one is broken. And somebody at one point put a flat in there and I tried welding a bunch of nuts on it, couldn't get it off. So I either need to burn that out of there and get a different one or just replace this whole setup. And so I opted to just replace it, and I'm going to put that thing all together. They're a little different. The actual overflow valve in this one is looks like that. The overflow valve in the other one looks like this. You know, minor differences. Still works the same. Same spring setup on the top, same flat ring at the bottom that seals around the filter. So, same exact filter size. This particular one is taller than the factory one, which doesn't really affect much. So, all in all, there are some minor differences, and one of them being this bracket is not here. But I'm okay with welding that up. I gotta clean this one up because it had a big old mouse nest in it like you saw. This ring. Hydraulic filter. Straight down the middle. We've got bypass valve, spring. And last but not least, the cover. I'll show you the bleeder valve. So this bolt has a groove that starts right there, and that groove goes all the way down to the bottom inside the filter canister there. And so you have to back out this bolt, you know, like 6 or 7 threads before it will then release the air that's built up in the hydraulic system when you're bleeding it and putting new fluid in. And so we're going to need that now that I've drained out most of the hydraulic fluid to replace that lower line. So that is the only reason that I went to the trouble of replacing this whole hydraulic filter assembly. I tried for quite some time to get the other one out of the other cap, and I need to just probably torch it out. But I knew for a fact this one was good. I just couldn't get this cover off. Now that we did, the whole canister looks better, and you know, it's just going to be a better all-around fit for it. So because this is a part that I do not want to get seized up again or ever, I'm going to cover it with copper anti-seize. It's like I need to buy some more. Right here is where the hydraulic oil will go into the machine on the side next to the tank. There's a lot more to putting hydraulic fluid into the system than just pouring it in there, and we're going to do the rest of it once we get the machine running and go from there. Alright, I'm going to open this bleeder valve and we're going to fill it up with hydraulic fluid. For now, it's going to be basically just fill it up, and then once I run it, I'll properly bleed it. But for right now, we're just going to get it all filled up as far as I can. Alright, so here's where the fuel filters come out, right on the side of the machine, side of the engine. And then here is how to remove the filter element from the top plate. Alright, let's replace the fuel filters. Brand new filters. Crankcase breather is pretty plugged up, so we grabbed the one from the other additional engine and we're going to put that one on instead. Alright, so this is the diesel engine crankcase breather, essentially right here, number 18. And this particular one is pretty packed full of junk. So for now, the other motor that's out in the weeds out there where Old Red came from had this one on it. And it's much cleaner on the inside here. And so I'm going to clean this one up, and this is going to be the one that's going to go on the machine. It looks a little nicer, hence it has some paint versus this one's completely gone. But that's the thought. We're going to use this one on the machine rather than that one, and I'll just hang on to that one for a while as an extra. Just cleaning up that little breather location. That's the crankcase breather. That one fits in there much nicer. So now we're on to the diesel engine. We're going to change the crankcase oil by pulling the plug in the bottom, draining it out of the oil cooler slash the filter assembly, and putting a new filter in. I'm going to change the engine oil and the engine oil filter. I would really like to run this machine and get it nice and hot, but because of the issue with the pony motor right now, I can't start the diesel, and I still want to change the oil anyway. My plan is to change it a couple times. So I bought 3 filters, and for now, we're just going to go ahead and change the oil. Plus this plug is leaking for some reason, so we're going to address that. And then once we get the machine up and running for a little while, I'm going to do it again just to make sure we get all the crap out of the machine. But for right now, we're just going to drain it cold, which it'll be fine. Oil actually looks pretty good. Nice and black. I don't feel any grit in it. So there should be a gasket, usually a copper ring that goes around there. And there was this paper gasket, it looks like, at some point, or rubber. I can't quite tell what this is. Yeah, it feels like rubber. So I think what I want to do is I either want to make or find a copper ring to use as the seal. And it looks like this is kind of irregular too, because it's got some bumps here. So I think I'm going to take a file to that and try and flatten out this surface all the way around so it seats up in there a little better. Right here is irregular. I'm going to try and eliminate any of these leaks down in the belly so that when we put the belly pan on, we don't end up with tons of oil and stuff down in there that we have to deal with later, or, you know, causing problems. Alright, that's much more even all the way around. This was like a high spot right here. This plug doesn't look great. These threads look a bit knackered. Might have to check the other extra motor out in the woods and see if it's got a better plug. Although I don't even think it has an oil pan on it, but I'll have to look anyway. Alright, so I want to make a new copper ring for the inside of this, just to seal against. I've got a piece of copper sheet. So there's the outside ring. So this tool here is called a Beverly shear. Essentially, it is a shear for cutting sheet metal, and you stick what you want to cut in here, and this throatless design essentially allows you to do all kinds of curves and things without having to, you know, do too much work. So we're going to use this to cut out our circle. Clean that up on the grinder real quick. Alright, that's how we're going to try and get the middle cut out. Plywood, a little spray glue. Well, that didn't work how I wanted it to do. There we go. All right, that should work. Perfect. That'll do. So it sure would have been easier to buy that little copper ring, and you know, at the end of the day, it was probably cheap, but I know there's people out there that will say that I wasted a lot of copper trying to figure that out and make that dumb little part. But in reality, what I was doing is I was learning. I was teaching myself, how do you make a thin little ring for, you know, just a gasket type surface out of a piece of, you know, flat copper. And, you know, first it was complicated, and then I was like, okay, well, I'll cut another one out and cut it again. But then I realized, oh, maybe I should drill it out first, and had a couple failures of that, and then got it. And so, you know, it's not perfect. It's not an exact whatever, but it'll do what I need. And in the process of the failure, I learned what doesn't work. I learned what works better. I still don't have a great idea on the best way to do that, but that's not the point. The point is, you have to continuously challenge yourself to do things you might not otherwise have tried, especially when it comes to working in a shop or working with your hands or getting out there and doing something that you're scared to do. Because at the end of the day, what's the worst case scenario here? I ruined some copper flat stock here. I mean, whatever. It's the end of the day, I had it here in the shop. And through that process, you gain more and more knowledge throughout your life, through whatever you challenge yourself to do. And so, yep, I could have bought the part, and yep, it probably would have been better than the one I made. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I keep growing, keep teaching myself new things, keep expanding on the knowledge that I have. And so that's what I like doing. That's why I enjoy it. Not to mention, I then would have had to wait for the gasket or find it or whatever. And so at this point, I've got something that'll work now, and I'm happy with that. All right, diesel oil filters in here, and then this is the diesel oil fill, and this is the diesel oil dipstick. The old filter. Fram? Come on. You going with Fram? It's a Fram filter, for goodness sake. Everybody knows Fram filters are, well, they leave a lot to be desired. Let's just put it that way. We're going with a legit cat. When I took that filter out, a little bit of water was on it. And I don't know if that's from pressure washing it or just condensation over the years. But I figured I'd just jam this in there and soak anything up. So that's the bottom of the filter assembly. Is there supposed to be an O-ring right here? It seals between, this is the filter cap, oil filter cap, and it goes on that canister. Do you know if there's supposed to be an O-ring right in here sealing, or some sort of gasket? Looks like there should be, or something there. So right here is where you drain the oil cooler and the unfiltered oil. Kind of a bad place for that. Right onto that frame. I got a bucket down there, but still. All right, we're gonna fill it up with oil tomorrow in the morning. All right, so this is Lady. Lady is a painted horse, and she's a friend of mine's. She's a beautiful horse.
Lady, you're being so good.
Yeah, she is being good. So, I thought you guys might want to see her, and we're gonna take her for a quick ride here in a minute. Yeah, yeah. What do you think, huh? Oh.
Good girl, Lady.
Yeah, she's doing good. Good girl. Good girl. Ha. Oh, oh.
Good girl, Lady.
Oh. Yeah.